President Trump has warned Vladimir Putin he'll impose tariffs and more sanctions on Russia if it does not reach an agreement to end the war in Ukraine.
The US president is warning Russia and the Russian President Vladimir Putin that he'll have no choice but to impose taxes and tariffs as well as sanctions if a deal to stop the conflict in Ukraine is not reached soon.
US President Donald Trump warned on Wednesday that high levels of taxes, tariffs and sanctions will be imposed on Russia if the Russian President Vladimir Putin does not end the war in Ukraine.
Trump warning to Russia to stop war in Ukraine. The world is watching closely as the war in Ukraine enters its third year. With lives lost, cities destroyed, and global tensions rising, the question on everyone's mind is, how much longer can this conflict drag on? And now in 2025, US President Donald Trump has issued a stark warning to Russia: end the war soon or face even harsher trade sanctions. But here's the real question. Will this warning actually get through to Vladimir Putin? Or is it just another diplomatic threat that won't change the course of the war? In this video, we'll break down Trump's statement, dive into what's happening in Ukraine, and discuss whether these sanctions will be enough to force Russia to negotiate. But before we dive into the details, I want to hear from you. Do you think sanctions will finally convince Russia to end the war? Or is this just another empty threat? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. In a bold statement this week, President Donald Trump made it clear that the United States is prepared to increase economic pressure on Russia if the war with Ukraine doesn't come to a swift end. Trump, now in his first term as the 47th President of the United States, has built much of his foreign policy around strong, direct action, and this warning to Russia is no different. He emphasized that further trade sanctions would be imposed on Russia's already struggling economy if they continue their aggression against Ukraine. Now, this isn't the first time we've heard such threats from a US president, but Trump's approach is unique. With his America First mentality and reputation for taking tough stances on foreign policy, Trump is positioning himself as the leader who will bring an end to this long-standing conflict. But here's where things get complicated. Russia has shown little to no concern for the threats of more sanctions. In fact, Russian officials have dismissed Trump's warning, saying they expect the US to take such steps, but they don't see it as anything that will force them to change their course. Why is that? After years of economic sanctions, Russia has learned to adapt. While the Russian economy has certainly taken a hit, it hasn't collapsed. Instead, Russia has pivoted to other global partners, especially China and India, which have been crucial in mitigating the damage caused by Western sanctions. So while the sanctions have hurt, they haven't been enough to break Russia's resolve. But let's be clear, there's a lot more at stake here than just a battle of words between two world leaders. The war in Ukraine is wreaking havoc on the global economy, destabilizing Europe, and driving up energy prices worldwide. The conflict has left millions displaced and countless others living in fear of the next escalation. For the United States and its allies, ending the war in Ukraine has become a critical priority, not just to protect the people of Ukraine, but to prevent the conflict from spreading further and threatening the global balance of power. So what happens if President Trump's warning doesn't bring about a change in Russia's stance? The most immediate consequence could be more sanctions, but that's a risky path. Economists have long warned that more sanctions could backfire, causing even more pain for Europe and the global economy. Energy prices, already at record highs, could skyrocket further, plunging countries into economic turmoil. Europe, heavily dependent on Russian energy, would feel the brunt of this. The ripple effect could be disastrous for many countries that are already struggling with inflation and economic slowdowns. There's also the question of how much further the West can push Russia without pushing it into a corner. As the war drags on, both sides grow more entrenched in their positions. The stakes get higher and the possibility of further escalation increases. So, while more sanctions might seem like an easy solution, they come with significant risks. We're not just talking about two countries here. This war has far-reaching implications. The conflict in Ukraine has created a rift between Russia and the West, and the global community is divided on how to address the situation. Countries like China, India, and many others in the global South have either stayed neutral or supported Russia in various ways. On the other hand, The United States and its NATO allies are committed to supporting Ukraine, both diplomatically and militarily, to ensure that Russia doesn't gain further ground. The question that many are asking now is whether this war will define the global order for the next decade. Will Russia succeed in reshaping the geopolitical landscape? Or will the combined pressure from the US and its allies force a resolution? And if more sanctions are imposed, could that make the conflict worse? The answers aren't clear yet, but what's certain is that the outcome of this war will have lasting consequences for global politics, security, and economics. So what do you think? Will President Trump's warning be the tipping point that forces Russia to end the war? Or are we just heading toward more of the same? Will more sanctions change anything? Or will they only make the situation worse? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave your comments below and let's discuss. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest developments in Ukraine, global politics, and much more, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The world is changing rapidly, and we're here to bring you the latest news and analysis as it unfolds. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.